Our next speaker is someone whom everyone knows. He is no stranger to this place or to these events. He's someone who also knows Syria from inside, someone who visited Syria and who campaigned for the rights of the Syrian people for many a year. Imam Ajmal Masroor is a broadcaster, writer and co-founder of Al-Kimia Media Limited. Please welcome Imam Ajmal Masroor.
Thank you very much. It's very difficult to speak after you, Hugh Miles. You cover the topics that you speak very comprehensively, and I'm very honored to be present listening to you and all the other distinguished speakers. I'm really sad that I'm standing here 8 years on, still speaking about the same topic. It makes my heart cry. It makes me want to weep, but I know weeping is not enough. Impact of doing nothing, ladies and gentlemen, is catastrophe. And that's what we've seen in the world around us. The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. Edmund Burke said this a long time ago. When I say doing nothing, I mean in proportion to the problem. The international communities have failed collectively to save the millions of men, women, and children from the massacre at the hand of a tyrant dictator. His massacre and his brutality did not begin 8 years ago. His father had paved the way when he killed thousands in the mid-80s for doing the same thing, standing up for their right, for freedom of their own people. Ladies and gentlemen, they have let the tyrant remain in power and do business as usual. This is not a new story. There are many tyrants in the world who are in power and doing business as usual. You don't have to go very far. Saudi Arabia is one of them. My favorite country nowadays. Keep on talking about their human rights. But they have a blank check. Do what you like, we will turn a blind eye. You are the energy bank of the world. The impact of doing nothing is the entire region has been destabilized, and it will not become normal for another 100 years at least. Generations have been lost to this brutal massacre. People's homes and properties have been destroyed. Ladies and gentlemen, civilizations have been lost, while the good people of the world did nothing. Forgive me for saying the good people of the world did nothing. I feel we did nothing, for our actions were not enough. Can we ever recover the loss of the ocean of knowledge from books, mosques, and Islamic institutions that dotted Syrian landscape? Never. Can we ever reconstruct the architecture and the archaeological ruins that had become the symbol and a witness of previous history and civilization? No, never. I still remember Aleppo, the old city of Aleppo. I still remember the smell, the sound, the domes, the arches, the businessman and woman, the dealings, the dodgy ones and the good ones. I still remember somebody trying to sell me a carpet in the markets of Aleppo. Gone, destroyed forever. They offered lame excuses. When I say they, I mean the international community. We need to fight ISIS first. While the Western world, our governments, along with their Middle Eastern lapdog puppets, I call them, chase ISIS across Syria, Russian aircraft indiscriminately bombed the living daylight out of more Syrians and innocent people. While Iranian militia take control of more cities and villages, thus creating further fissure and sectarian divide in the region, all the while strengthening the power of Bashar al-Assad. He is, of course, let loose off the hook. He can do what he likes. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what happens when you do nothing. This is what Edmund Burke actually meant. When you do nothing, this is what happens. Catastrophe. When you do nothing, you create a space, a vacuum. Somebody else will fill it. While the good people of the world did nothing, extremists from all over the world decided to do something. We call them ISIS. But we created the vacuum in the first place. Who created ISIS? Who sustained ISIS? Who turned a blind eye to ISIS? And who eventually said they've destroyed ISIS? Ladies and gentlemen, the innocent people of Syria are not responsible for ISIS. The good people of the world who did nothing are directly responsible for ISIS and the massacre upon the Syrian people. The impact of doing nothing is that even God will not come down to intervene at the mess that we create as human beings. Even God will not come down to solve our problems. God says that in the Quran, for those of you who ascribe to the Quran. God will not change the condition of those people unless they change what is within them. So the Salafis, the Saudis, the non-Salafis, the Ikhwanis, non-Ikhwanis, the Syrians, the infighters, all the divisions. You can wait until eternity. God will not solve your problem. God did not create it. You did. We did. The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good people to do nothing. Ladies and gentlemen, the evil of Russia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and many other brutal dictatorships who are directly involved in the conflict have prevailed. Their evil regimes have become stronger and bolder. This is what happens when good people do nothing. We have seen how Saudi Arabia, emboldened by Donald Trump's eagerness to sell them any weapons, is using those weapons to kill the innocent people of Yemen. Ladies and gentlemen, when you do nothing, you create catastrophe. The entire global community are feeling the displacement of so many people. There are millions who are desperately seeking help and protection from safer and more stable countries in the neighborhood, but also taking the treacherous journey across the Mediterranean to reach Europe. Many perished in that process, joining the millions of African enslaved by the Europeans and shipped across the sea many, many years ago. Skeleton to skeleton, they're united in their common fate, death at sea. One en route to slavery, the other en route to the elusive freedom. Ladies and gentlemen, when you do nothing, your crying, your donation, and your prayers are not enough, for they count as doing nothing. To me, they almost are tantamount to doing nothing. So what could we do? What could we have done? We have to be practical and real. In our country, our government was discussing and debating this in the parliament, whether to or not to intervene in Syria. The media decided to play a vital role in turning the story and the narrative. And our parliamentarians became afraid of calling a spade, holding Bashar al-Assad to account, and forever would be embarrassed and ashamed of knowing that our government and our parliamentarians let me down and let millions down in Syria. Our government could have done something, but they didn't. So we must challenge and rise against the establishment in our own democratic country, where a small band of people decide the common narrative of the world. We must challenge that, and we must not allow for them to get away with it ever again. Secondly, we must support freedom and democracy movement across Middle East, as my friend said earlier on. Ladies and gentlemen, democracy and freedom is the only panacea for the Middle East. Only panacea. Let me make it clear. For those of you who don't like the word democracy, I have no reason to even explain it to you. freedom inherent in every human being. They deserve to be free. They deserve to have a right to participate in election, stand in election, and unelect people who don't represent them, account their government. It is their inalienable right that they should be given. We must support democracy movement and freedom movement across the Middle East without any embarrassment or shame. In fact, you know what? We should go one step further. You should stop going to Hajj and Umrah if you have been once already. Because by going to Hajj and Umrah every year, you are giving more money to the dictators and despots of Saudi Arabia to carry on pursuing their hegemony in the region. You should boycott going to holiday destinations in Dubai, in all those regions where the money that you give is then pumped into sustaining dictatorship and despots. You really want to change? You got to change from within. Ladies and gentlemen, we must support the local people in Syria and the Middle East to build institutions. Yes, without institutions, there is no future. And finally, for those of us who are in Britain, you're British, I'm assuming all of you are, all of us are. We have a great role and a great country. Despite Brexit mess, despite Boris Johnson's buffoonery, despite all the craziness that is going on in our country, it is a country with great future. Only great when you, the great people of this country, choose to work and do something profound, and that is make a change. So we can make a change. We can be involved in politics. My good friend Jonathan is here, right from the heart of politics. We talk about politics all the time. You need to become parliamentarians. You need to become local councillors. You need to become people of interest and influence. You need to become people who make stories in terms of reporting them in the media, write about them, analyze them. You're a broadcaster. You are somebody powerful. That's when you start changing the world and changing the narrative. To finish off, remember what I said? Edmund Burke's words. Remember what I said at the beginning? Edmund Burke said so beautifully, and let me repeat that and I'll finish. The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good man and woman to do nothing. And from Islamic perspective, God will not change the condition of those people who don't change what is within them first. So the onus of change, onus of changing the world is on you and me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Imam Ajmal Masroor. I think that was the perfect ending to a fabulous evening.
Yes. Actually, I've got something else to say, which I forgot. Yep. Ladies and gentlemen, this event has been put together by a few people. And I'm not here to fundraise. As you know, I do fundraise all the time. But do make a contribution if you can. There's a box over there. My dear brother Anas and Abdullah and others who have been involved, they put money together to put it together. There is a little bit of a cost. If we share the cost, small amounts on your way out, it will make a huge difference. He didn't ask me to say this. I felt compelled to say it. Because unless we do help one another, we can't change. Carry on.
Thank you so much. I think that the call to action in the specific points that were highlighted in this last speech, I think are sufficient to wrap this fantastic evening.